Good morning. Welcome to this last day of the Leap for FNSSA Stakeholders Week. It has been a very busy week for most of us, and today is the last and fifth day. We are welcoming you to this webinar organized by Desira. You will find in the chat box the link to all the projects presently approved and running of Desira in the chat box. You are requested to put your questions in the question and answer box, not in the chat box. You will find translation. We have two interpreters, Céline and Barbara. You will find the icon below your screen on the right, this little globe, and it says interpretation. We are already 30 persons online. I will now switch to French. Bienvenue à cette cinquième journée du consortium Leap for FNSSA. Ceci a été une semaine très chargée pour beaucoup d'entre nous. Cette dernière journée, nous commençons avec le panel Desira. Pardon, Desira. Vous trouverez dans le chat un lien qui vous permettra de vous connecter à tous les projets de Desira. Je vais faire suivre ce lien par le programme où vous trouverez les différents panélistes et la séquence des différentes interventions. Les différents panélistes ont tous une opportunité donc d'être écoutés sous mode interprétation. Vous verrez au bas de votre écran, à votre droite, l'icône qui est une icône qui représente le globe avec interprétation. Donc là, vous pouvez ou bien choisir pour la langue originale, le français ou l'anglais. Nous avons rencontré un petit problème technique, c'est que beaucoup de personnes ont enregistré sous mon nom. Donc, dans le chat box, souvent apparaît le nom François Stepman, mais ce n'est pas moi, c'est un clone. Il y a moyen néanmoins que vous puissiez corriger votre nom en mettant donc et remplaçant François Stepman par votre nom. Je repasse maintenant à l'anglais. We have encountered a small technical problem. Several persons have registered for this webinar under my name with my link. So you will find many François Stepmans in the chat box. You are requested to change this from François to your own name, which will make it far more intelligible for us to see who is joining us. So I suggest we start. It's now 6 past the hour, and we start with the first presentation by Christophe Larose.
Oui, bonjour à tous. Attendez. Bonjour à tous. Donc, je vais m'exprimer en français. Je suis Christophe Larose de la Commission européenne, la Direction générale pour les relations, les partenariats internationaux, pardon, et l'unité qui s'occupe des questions de systèmes agroalimentaires durables et pêcherie. Voilà, j'ai le plaisir de pouvoir donner une petite introduction à cette session et surtout de faire une référence à cette initiative Desira, Development Smart Innovation through Research in Agriculture, que l'on a lancée en décembre 2017 avec donc l'objectif de contribuer à une transformation qui soit pertinente sur le plan climatique, productive et durable des systèmes agroalimentaires dans les pays à faible revenu, revenu intermédiaire, avec finalement et surtout deux objectifs au cœur de cette initiative. Un premier qui est de remettre plus de science dans le développement, dans nos opérations de développement, avec la compréhension que traiter des objectifs de développement durable, ça nécessite forcément la connaissance, donc c'est intensif en connaissance, et puis à la fois, ça doit être aussi pertinent par rapport au contexte, donc spécifique par rapport au contexte. Un deuxième objectif, ou en tout cas un deuxième élément fort de cette initiative, c'est son attention aux approches multi-acteurs et je dirais aussi encore une attention forte au développement des capacités pour l'innovation. Donc, bien sûr, il y a d'autres éléments thématiques, mais ce sont, je dirais, deux points assez forts de ce qui nous a semblé important lorsqu'on a conçu et lancé cette initiative. Donc, la session d'aujourd'hui va porter finalement, surtout sur une discussion sur les différents modèles d'innovation pour soutenir l'innovation en tant que telle dans le système agroalimentaire en Afrique en particulier. Et donc porter une réflexion sur quel rôle, quelle contribution de la recherche à ces questions, et aussi une réflexion sur quel type d'amélioration, quel besoin d'amélioration des politiques d'innovation qui s'appuieraient sur ces approches partenariales fortes et efficaces, et aussi donc une recherche et innovation qui s'oriente, qui contribue à l'impact, en définissant le plus clairement possible cette contribution à l'impact. Donc je m'arrête ici, je vais passer la parole à mon collègue Guy Faure qui va rentrer un peu plus dans les détails du sujet du jour. Merci.
Bonjour, vous voyez l'écran?
Parfait.
Voilà. Je vais également parler en français. Je vais présenter une réflexion sur le rôle de la recherche dans l'innovation, comment la recherche peut contribuer à cette innovation et appuyer les processus d'innovation. Alors, cette présentation s'appuie bien sûr sur des réflexions à partir des premiers projets désirables, mais aussi sur des travaux de recherche qui ont été menés sur ces questions de l'appui à l'innovation. Alors, je vais commencer par dire qu'il y a dans les débats internationaux, dans les débats scientifiques, mais aussi dans la communauté praticienne du développement, deux modèles d'innovation qui sont discutés et qui sont plus ou moins mis en œuvre. Le premier modèle que l'on connaît bien, c'est le modèle de transfert de connaissances et de technologies. C'est celui qui a permis la mise en œuvre de la révolution verte avec l'ensemble de ces pratiques agricoles, de ces techniques. Dans ce modèle-là, l'innovation, elle est plutôt perçue comme étant technique, avec un modèle linéaire dans lequel la recherche produit les connaissances et met au point des techniques, des technologies. Les services de conseil diffusent ces connaissances auprès du plus grand nombre des agriculteurs et les agriculteurs mettent en œuvre ces pratiques-là. Les agriculteurs ont un rôle dans ce sens-là passif. Dans ce modèle, la recherche, bien sûr, joue un rôle déterminant avec ses méthodes, avec ses technologies, avec ses modèles. Et les interactions pour mettre au point ces nouvelles technologies, pour qu'elles deviennent innovations, ces interactions avec les acteurs sont relativement limitées. Elles existent, mais elles ne sont pas au centre de la question. Ce modèle-là, il est toujours dominant, toujours fortement utilisé et il est assez efficace quand on veut traiter des questions simples, par exemple la mise au point d'une nouvelle variété et sa diffusion. Là aussi, l'avantage que c'est un modèle qui est vu comme permettant une standardisation des pratiques et donc peut s'appliquer assez rapidement à large échelle et favoriser une diffusion à large échelle de nouvelles technologies. Le deuxième modèle qui est de plus en plus discuté, mis en avant, c'est celui de le modèle multi-acteurs pour favoriser l'innovation. Dans ce cadre-là, la vision de l'innovation est différente. L'innovation est variée, elle est technique, elle est organisationnelle, elle est institutionnelle, et on considère que les connaissances nécessaires pour promouvoir l'innovation sont distribuées entre les acteurs. Et le pilotage de l'innovation est incertain. On ne sait pas très bien où est-ce que l'on va arriver quand on se lance dans une aventure pour favoriser le développement d'innovation. Dans ce modèle-là, ce qui est important, c'est le rôle des réseaux formels ou informels d'acteurs publics ou privés pour construire des connaissances, pour accéder à des ressources, pour générer cette innovation. Dans ce modèle-là, la recherche joue toujours un rôle, peut jouer un rôle, mais c'est une contribution. Elle contribue à l'innovation en interagissant avec les autres acteurs. Ce modèle-là, il est efficace pour adresser des problèmes complexes quand ces problèmes doivent être traités par un nombre important d'acteurs. On peut penser au développement de chaînes d'agriculture biologique, chaînes de valeur d'agriculture biologique qui vont mobiliser un ensemble important d'acteurs pour pouvoir se développer à l'échelle. Mais ce modèle-là implique que la façon de s'organiser dépend du contexte. Et on peut aussi ajouter que ce modèle-là prend de plus en plus d'importance. En Afrique, on parle de plateformes d'innovation, comme le FARA le développe. C'est autour de cette conception du modèle d'innovation. En Europe, ce sont les partenariats européens pour l'innovation qui sont les modèles promus pour favoriser cette innovation. Maintenant, je vais essayer de comprendre comment on peut appuyer les processus d'innovation. L'innovation, en fait, c'est un processus non linéaire, mais c'est un processus qui va permettre le développement de nouvelles façons de faire, de nouvelles façons de concevoir et des nouvelles pratiques agricoles, des nouvelles organisations. Ce petit modèle d'innovation avec cette spirale montre que l'innovation commence par une idée initiale d'un petit groupe d'acteurs ou d'un entrepreneur qui va développer son idée petit à petit, va commencer à expérimenter, c'est la phase par exemple de planning, développer des prototypes, c'est la phase de développement, et puis mettre en place à grande échelle l'innovation technique, organisationnelle, institutionnelle, c'est la phase de réalisation. Et ensuite, si cette innovation rencontre un succès, elle va se diffuser et être répliquée par d'autres acteurs dans d'autres situations. Finalement, pour appuyer l'innovation, on peut appuyer l'innovation à ces différentes phases du processus d'innovation. Quand on est à la phase initiale, au démarrage du processus d'innovation, initial idea or inspiration, dans ce graphique-là, ce qui est important, c'est de favoriser les échanges d'expériences, le brainstorming entre acteurs pour identifier de nouvelles idées, parfois un peu folles. Et ce qui se met en place, c'est le support, l'appui à des réseaux informels d'acteurs et souvent soutenus par des petits fonds qui leur permettent de développer à très petites échelles un certain nombre d'initiatives, de tester. Quand on est dans la phase d'expérimentation et on va dire, de prototypage, les appuis se formalisent avec des appuis à des réseaux qui sont de plus en plus formels. Et c'est là que l'on va voir se développer des mécanismes comme des plateformes d'innovation. Quand on parle d'entrepreneurs, des incubateurs qui permettent d'expérimenter des nouvelles façons de faire par des entrepreneurs. C'est là que l'on a aussi la mise en place d'expérimentations participatives. Et c'est le domaine pour ceux qui ont connu le projet, qui ont travaillé dans le projet CDIS, Capacity Development for Agricultural Innovation Systems, c'est le domaine des niches d'innovation où un certain nombre d'acteurs se mettent à expérimenter des nouvelles façons de faire et développent des innovations. Quand on est dans la phase d'implémentation à grande échelle de l'innovation, on retrouve des services beaucoup plus classiques, en particulier du conseil plus de masse qui permettent la formation des agriculteurs ou des acteurs. C'est également le lieu où on va mettre en place des champs de démonstration. Et les mécanismes de financement sont plus classiques, ce sont des accès au crédit. Pour se coordonner, les acteurs ont besoin de mécanismes plus formels de coordination et de pilotage de l'innovation. Dans les phases finalement, des dernières phases, pour favoriser et inscrire l'innovation dans le panorama institutionnel, des politiques publiques peuvent favoriser la mise en place de normes, de taxes, de subventions qui va permettre de développer et d'inscrire cette innovation dans le paysage institutionnel pour le plus grand nombre. Ce que l'on a quand on fait une synthèse de ces différents types d'appui et de support à l'innovation, on peut considérer qu'il y a 4 services génériques d'appui à l'innovation. Le premier, c'est un service visant à faciliter les échanges entre acteurs, à jouer des fonctions de broker, d'intermédiaire, dans le cadre de réseaux formels et informels. Le deuxième, c'est un service qui vise à renforcer la capacité des acteurs à innover, à développer leurs capacités techniques et fonctionnelles à différents niveaux, au niveau individuel, au niveau des organisations, au niveau des institutions. Le projet CDIS que j'ai évoqué tout à l'heure visait à renforcer la capacité des acteurs à innover et a largement investi ce champ-là, montrant que c'était un mécanisme important pour favoriser l'innovation. Un troisième point, c'est l'accès au financement. Et ça, c'est un point important où on doit jouer sur des mécanismes de financement variés suivant le stade de l'innovation en mixant des financements publics et financements privés. Cette ingénierie des financements est certainement à développer, notamment en Afrique, pour favoriser la mise au point et la diffusion d'innovation. Enfin, le dernier service, c'est celui de la production de connaissances pour l'action, là où la recherche est souvent reconnue dans ce domaine-là, mais en valorisant à la fois les connaissances locales et les connaissances scientifiques. Donc, dans ce cadre-là, on peut considérer que la recherche peut contribuer à l'ensemble de ces services. Ce n'est pas le seul acteur qui peut fournir ces services-là, production de connaissances, facilitation, renforcement de capacités, mais elle peut y contribuer et jouer des rôles qui sont spécifiques. Sur la base d'un certain nombre d'expériences, enfin d'études de cas, on s'aperçoit que la recherche peut jouer ces rôles, d'une part en assurant une production et dissémination de connaissances, les principaux, c'est là qu'elle est fortement reconnue. Elle peut jouer un rôle dans la co-conception d'innovation, donc avec les acteurs, en expérimentant, en mettant au point des nouvelles technologies et des processus, en développant des méthodes. Elle peut aussi jouer un rôle autour de la gestion de ressources, qui n'est pas un rôle fortement reconnu, mais quand on regarde ce que font les projets de recherche et innovation comme Desira, la gestion des ressources pour faciliter le développement de processus d'innovation est un élément important. Elle peut appuyer les acteurs à innover, pas simplement en aidant à concevoir des innovations en produisant des connaissances, mais aussi en participant à la facilitation de ces réseaux, des réseaux d'acteurs, ou en jouant des rôles de plaidoyer et de conseil auprès d'un certain nombre d'acteurs, et notamment auprès, par exemple, des politiques publiques. Le rôle de la recherche est reconnu pour fournir un certain nombre de recommandations. Enfin, elle peut jouer un rôle dans le renforcement des capacités des acteurs à innover via des formations formelles ou informelles d'étudiants, de chercheurs, mais aussi et surtout d'acteurs du développement. Pour jouer ces différents rôles, pour assurer ces différentes fonctions, il y a différentes façons d'organiser la recherche. Il y a différents modèles d'intervention de la recherche. Le premier modèle, qui est le modèle classique et qui renvoie à ce fameux modèle de transfert de connaissances et d'innovation, c'est un modèle où finalement le chercheur, la recherche a une vision assez claire des objectifs à atteindre, mais aussi un contrôle fort sur la production des outputs, des produits de la recherche et sur la production des outcomes, des résultats. Et finalement, les interactions avec les acteurs sont toujours nécessaires. Si on parle de développement de nouvelles semences, on a besoin, les chercheurs ont besoin d'interagir. D'une certaine manière, pour ce type d'innovation, les interactions avec les acteurs sont limitées et parfois restreintes à leur plus simple expression. Le deuxième modèle, c'est le modèle de la co-construction des innovations. Dans ce cadre-là, le chercheur, la recherche a une vision assez claire de ce qu'elle veut obtenir, un nouveau système de production, une nouvelle façon d'organiser une transformation des produits agricoles, mais elle ne contrôle pas la production des résultats, des outcomes, et la façon d'obtenir ces résultats dans la réalité, sur le terrain, reste incertaine. Et dans ce cadre-là, il y a besoin d'une réelle participation avec les acteurs pour construire des connaissances et mettre au point ces innovations. Typiquement, si on parle de nouveaux systèmes de production agroécologique où il n'y a pas de silver bullet, comme on pourrait dire, eh bien, finalement, la discussion et l'interaction avec les acteurs est un élément fondamental pour arriver à construire des innovations qui ont du sens pour les acteurs et qui peuvent se déployer à grande échelle. Le troisième modèle est celui de l'appui à l'innovation. Dans ce cadre-là, on n'en parle pas souvent, mais c'est dans la réalité, on le voit appliqué de manière assez importante. La recherche ne maîtrise pas du tout le processus d'innovation. Ce sont les autres acteurs qui le maîtrisent et qui pilotent l'innovation. Et dans ce cadre-là, la recherche contribue à l'innovation en fonction des demandes qui sont exprimées pour apporter des connaissances, pour apporter des méthodes, pour aider à évaluer, pour construire des argumentaires. Typiquement, par exemple, quand on a des projets de recherche et innovation avec des paysans qui expérimentent et qui pilotent l'innovation, ils font appel à certains chercheurs qui vont les aider sur des points spécifiques. Et la recherche est pilotée, finalement, la recherche et l'innovation est pilotée par ces producteurs et leurs organisations. Le dernier modèle, c'est le modèle de l'innovation ouverte. Alors, l'innovation ouverte peut être vue comme l'innovation multi-acteurs et renvoie à la co-construction des innovations, par exemple. Mais l'innovation ouverte, originellement, renvoie beaucoup plus à une conception de la recherche où la recherche produit des résultats, a une forte maîtrise dans la production de ces résultats, mais les résultats de cette recherche vont être pris en charge et développés sous forme d'innovation sous différentes formes par différents types d'acteurs. Typiquement, c'est la mise au point de bases de données ou de logiciels par la recherche avec une forte maîtrise des processus de production de connaissances et des outils technologiques par les chercheurs. Mais ces outils peuvent être repris par d'autres acteurs pour développer des logiciels spécifiques, pour développer des outils d'apprentissage, pour développer des outils de communication de différentes manières. Donc voilà différents modèles d'organisation et d'intervention de la recherche pour pouvoir jouer les différents rôles. Je vais terminer juste sur un certain nombre de messages pour récapituler ce qui vient d'être dit. D'une part, on a besoin d'avoir une vision large de l'innovation avec cette perspective de système d'innovation. D'une part, pour comprendre l'innovation, mais surtout pour pouvoir l'accompagner d'une manière efficace et ne pas avoir un discours trop simpliste sur ce qu'est l'innovation et comment accompagner l'innovation. Le deuxième point, c'est que la recherche peut contribuer. Je mets peut parce que dans certains cas, l'innovation n'inclut pas la recherche, elle peut être conduite par d'autres acteurs, publics ou privés. Donc la recherche peut contribuer en jouant des rôles qui sont divers et ne pas simplement penser à la production de connaissances et de technologies, mais chaque fois que la recherche a joué un rôle significatif dans l'innovation, elle a joué une diversité de rôles au-delà de la production de connaissances et la mise au point de technologies. Le troisième point, c'est que le modèle d'organisation de la recherche, il est variable, il n'y a pas qu'un seul modèle, et que ce modèle d'organisation de la recherche dépend du type d'innovation qui est accompagné ou qui est développé, mais aussi de la distribution des ressources au sens ressources cognitives, des ressources financières entre les acteurs et des choix stratégiques que veut faire la recherche et les autres acteurs pour pouvoir développer cette innovation. Et le dernier point, c'est que finalement, quels que soient les modèles d'intervention de la recherche, que ce soit le transfert, ce que j'ai appelé le transfert de technologie participative, la co-construction, l'accompagnement ou l'innovation ouverte, finalement, on a toujours une approche multi-acteurs et que c'est bien cette approche multi-acteurs qui fait interagir recherche et autres acteurs qui est un élément déterminant pour pouvoir contribuer à l'innovation et contribuer à l'impact à grande échelle. Merci.
Parfait, Guy. Donc, pour ceux qui sont intéressés dans la présentation de Guy, vous trouverez déjà sa présentation en ligne dans le lien dans le chat. For those who want to have Guy's presentation, you will find it when you click on the link in the chat box. Over to you, Agri, in Accra, Ghana, early in the morning. I guess it's 7:30 your time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Francois. And I hope, yes. Thank you to the Desira team for giving me and giving Farah the opportunity to share about this subject of research, the contribution of research to innovation. My name is Agri Agumia. I'm the Director of Research and Innovation at FARA. I'll just complement what Guy has presented by presenting two cases of where we have FARA, together with the partners, have tested and validated two approaches to innovation where research has played a key role. But I'll start by giving a very small introduction about FARA and how it plays into the innovation space. FARA is a Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. It's part of the architecture of agricultural research and innovation on the continent. At the national level, you have national agricultural research and innovation systems. And then within each region, we have a sub-regional organization that organizes and brings together the national agricultural research systems within the region. And then at the apex, you have you have FARA, the Forum for Agricultural Research. Now, the extension actors have also a continental organization called AFAS, the Africa Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, which links with the sub-regional organizations at sub-regional level and at national level with the national extension systems. So that's how we are organized, and when we are engaging in work that covers more than one country, it's done through the sub-regional organization and then through FARA. And the work that is carried out by the different organizations is guided by the subsidiarity principle. Now, there is a growing interest in innovation by the research fraternity, especially. And this interest dates back to about 15 to 17 years, when it became very clear that the linear approach was not delivering the goods that the researchers expected. And they also had some indications that the innovation systems approach would provide better results. But there was no certainty about it. So there was an experiment that FARA was mandated to carry out to test whether indeed the innovation systems approach is viable, and whether it offers better and superior outcomes. And so over time, there's been a big shift as awareness about innovation increases, and as the evidence that it offers better results, as that evidence becomes available, we see that shift. For me, from what Guy has presented about the linear approach and the innovation approach, that diagram there made it very clear for me why the difference between the two. That in the linear approach you have that stepwise process, whereas in the innovation approach you have a network, a kind of arrangement where things move faster. The first case is on the integrated agricultural research for development approach. This is the keyword there would be that it is integrated. Around the integration is around 4 areas. Normally in the agricultural research, we are aiming to improve productivity, improve access to markets, natural resource management policies and institutions. And in the linear approach, the focus is mainly to improve one of those outcomes, improve productivity or improve natural resource management. In the integrated agricultural research, you are looking at the interfaces between all those areas, the interfaces among them. If it's productivity and natural resource management, you're looking at the interface between productivity and natural resource management, as well as improving productivity on its own and improving natural resource management on its own, and so on. Now, the main instrument for the IAR4D approach is the innovation platform. The innovation platform is an institutional tool that facilitates the services that Guy has mentioned. It facilitates the generation of technologies and knowledge, and it facilitates capacity strengthening. It facilitates the application of the knowledge to create development outcomes. So that's the main tool. There's a lot of interest and excitement about the innovation platform. We've had so many projects which have embraced the platform. We have institutions that have embraced the innovation platform as the model and tool for carrying out research. So the characterization of the platform is that it's a multi-stakeholder platform, and the stakeholders are those, they would depend on the problem being addressed, but they are typically researchers, private sector, the extension, producers, and policymakers. And the key to the success of a platform is its facilitation. So the facilitation is so critical that success is really conditional on it. But the composition of the platform really depends on what it sets out to achieve. But those that I have listed are the main actors. We distinguish between an operational platform, which is the one that operates at local level, where you have the producers at local level, the ones who are really engaged in production. And then we have the strategic platform, which would be like a national level platform where it is engaged in mostly policy and strategic kind of engagement. The functions have really been highlighted by Guy, so I'll not dwell on that. Now, we have evidence that the IAR4D approach indeed works and offers better results than the linear approach. And this evidence was assembled through a 10-year study led by FARA, but working in collaboration with the sub-regional organizations and with the CGIAR. It was established that IAR4D delivers superior benefits than the linear approach. And this was very important because it now provided the evidence that stakeholders and policymakers needed to now start making a shift to this approach. One of the results is that the study showed that incomes of farmers engaged in IAR4D were 232% higher than non-IAR4D farmers. And there were other indicators, but for time, I will just highlight that one only. There are several entry points for the innovation platform. You can have an entry point that is based on markets. You can have one that's based on institutional change, on innovation, capacity, and on social capital for natural resource management. I'll just give an example of the market pathway. This shows an innovation platform where the entry point is the market linkage. And it shows that the aim is to improve food security, and minimize poverty by increasing income. To increase income, you need to increase the profit margin. And so there are so many services services that are required to get to these outcomes. But on the top here, my interest is in the research side. For you to have improved profit margin, you need to be producing what is demanded. And for you to produce what is demanded efficiently, you need to deploy research to improve productivity, and then to improve the profit margin. So this figure goes to highlight, I think, a point that he has mentioned, that research is a contributor. It's only a contributor, but a very important contributor to the innovation process. And this is just one indication of how it's done. The lessons from our various entry points show that if the entry point is the market, there is a high likelihood for that innovation platform be sustainable beyond most of the platforms that were established in this experiment were project-based. Now, several years after the project closed, we have found that the ones that were based on market linkages are the ones that are still standing. The other question that was answered by this study that we did over 10 years was whether the innovation platform is effective in scaling up technologies. It indeed demonstrated that, yes, there is that the innovation platform can facilitate the scaling up, and other studies after the 10 years have shown that the innovation platforms have facilitated the scaling up. But what they have also established is that the process is not well understood, how the platform does this, supports the scaling up. It's kind of a black box, and this is perhaps an area where more work is needed to understand. This map shows the innovation platforms that are in a database that FARA manages, and that database is used by, for example, private sector actors who engage platforms to produce, to express demand for commodities that the platforms then organize themselves to produce and supply. The second case is the PIPAD, the Platform for Africa-European Partnership on Agricultural Research for Development. This is a platform that has been on since 2006, and it's a bi-continental platform with the objective of facilitating African-European partnerships that are, one, equitable, and two, balanced between three areas: equitable and balanced between the two actors in Africa and Europe, equitable and balanced between researchers and research users, and equitable and balanced between public and private organizations. I'll focus my example on the last two, equitable and balanced between research and research users and public and private organizations, because that's where the case of the multi-stakeholder partnership is demonstrated. So within the PIPAD, a process called the users-led process was developed and tested. This is where the research is, you have a multi-stakeholder platform that addresses an issue that is mostly put on the table or proposed by the end users. So the process, the research carried out in this process is demand-led. Then you have, as a multi-stakeholder partnership, it is demand-led, so it is users-led. So the work that is done is demand-led, but the users, who are mostly farmers, benefit from the multi-stakeholder platform through the capacity strengthening that the researchers, especially also the private sector actors, bring to the platform. And so as a platform, one of the objectives was to mobilize resources for them as a consortium to be able to do joint work. Individually, they could not have been successful in mobilizing the kind of resources they were able to mobilize. They found that for every euro that was invested in these partnerships, they were able to leverage 3.3 euros. And if they considered the other non-consortium partners that those partners brought onto the platform, that ratio increased substantially, 8 times.
1 minute remaining.
Yes, I'll go to the conclusion. The users-led process partnerships many years after the project has ended, have continued to grow. They are more sustainable, and so that's the contrast we see with the IAR4D. So I conclude that for most innovation in African agriculture, research plays a fundamental role in generating knowledge and technology, as Guy has said. The innovation framework ensures that research is demand-led. It also ensures that the research outputs are used. And it does this by building capacity, by facilitating brokerage, networking, and policy. This just goes to reinforce the point that Guy has made. Multi-stakeholder partnerships have proven to offer greater development impact, but they require a long-term engagement. And their results are not immediate, but they are long-lasting. So you have to be patient. There's more sustainability. Another point, reinforcing research actors contribute to multi-stakeholder partnerships. In the case of IAR4D, a number of the platforms were research-led. In the case of the iPad, they were user-led. But they don't have to be, research doesn't always have to be. And we have seen that user-led partnerships have shown greater sustainability. With regard to scaling, we need to understand the process through which innovation platforms facilitate scaling, so that once we know how it does it, we can ensure that that scaling is sustained and good. Thank you very much, Francois, for the extra minute.
Before we move to the poll, we have two questions, one for you, Agri, and one for Guy. Avant qu'on passe au sondage, il y a une question dans le chat box, une est pour Agri et l'autre est pour Guy. On va d'abord poser la question à Agri. So the question for you, and it comes from Mayra Roperes. You know Mayra very well. She has been working for FARA. She is very knowledgeable on the whole process of how PEPAD started back in 2007. So her question to you is, does your impact evaluation of innovation platforms, does it include the return on investment in addition to the increase in farmers' livelihood? That was the question. Does the impact evaluation of the innovation platforms include an analysis of return on investment in addition to whether it has brought an increase in farmers' livelihood, in farmers' income? How would you answer this, Agri? Does this evaluation include this type of analysis, farmer income and return on investment?
Yes, thank you. The work that has been done by FARA has focused on the increase in incomes of farmers. The investment, we would want to see the investment outside the project. We haven't done that, but we are aware of some studies that have been initiated in the context of PhD studies on the return on investment. We have not commissioned the impact evaluation that looks at that aspect, but there is a lot of interest in this work after the project ended. There are a number of studies, and one of them that I'm aware of is looking at the impact evaluation on return on investment. Thank you very much, Myra, for the question.
And Myra, I would suggest that you chip in live to ask your question to Guy Faure so that we see you. It's a long time. Welcome, Myra. Myra, are you there?
Yes, hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Myra. So thanks, Agri, for the answer. I think indeed that's one of the challenges we have. I think at least the observation I have in terms of when impact evaluation, we always forget the return of investments. As much as we are trying to improve the farmer's livelihood, we forget how much we put effort in putting together projects, especially the human resources, the time of people. Anyway, thanks for that. Yeah, to G4, which probably is related to this, and you already responded to me on my question. It's very interesting, the different categories you've shown, which is really very relevant. But I wonder how much it is affected, the use of it is affected by the available grants by donor, which is still very much driven by donors, because most of us are still very much public research institutions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. You're right. Je vais répondre en français puisqu'il y a la traduction. Oui, les modèles de recherche sont largement influencés par les mécanismes de financement en Afrique, mais pas seulement. Hein. En Europe, les financements de la recherche sont aussi très discutés. À l'évidence, de nombreux bailleurs favorisent le modèle de transfert de connaissances avec des degrés d'interaction, de participation avec des acteurs plus ou moins importants, avec l'idée que ce sont les technologies qui vont permettre de résoudre les problèmes et que ce modèle permet de diffuser à grande échelle et rapidement de nouvelles technologies. Donc, on trouve beaucoup de projets orientés autour de ce modèle, même si les institutions de recherche, comme le montre le FARA, se posent des questions sur les meilleures façons d'organiser la recherche. On a aussi le modèle d'appui à l'innovation, donc qui peut être un modèle utilisé par des firmes privées, par exemple, pour commanditer des études pour développer leur recherche. Et du coup, la recherche peut être très orientée. Comme je disais, c'est pas la recherche qui conduit le processus, mais c'est d'autres acteurs. Et dans ce cadre-là, finalement, le contenu de la recherche et la façon de faire la recherche est orienté par la commande de ces acteurs. Après, sur la co-construction, plusieurs bailleurs, enfin plusieurs mécanismes de financement travaillent sur la co-construction. Hein. On a bien vu Agré qui parlait du projet PEPAR. Le programme Désira met l'accent sur ces approches multi-acteurs. Le partenariat européen pour l'innovation en Europe met l'accent aussi sur ces approches multi-acteurs dans l'agriculture. Donc, on a des acteurs qui ont favorisé ce type d'innovation, ce type de modèle d'intervention de la recherche. Pour l'open innovation, oui, certainement, il faut avoir des financements plus autonomes pour pouvoir être plus indépendant et fournir un certain nombre de produits utilisables par d'autres acteurs pour développer leur activité. Voilà ce que je peux dire à ce stade-là.
You will now see on your screen a first question, a poll. We are already online for about 1 hour. 1 hour is remaining. I only give you like 30 seconds to react. It's in English and it's in French. So the question is, in your opinion, innovation in agriculture in Africa is rather initiated by, and then rank in order of priority, multiple choices, either initiated by research, either initiated by the farmers, either initiated by local private sector, foreign private sector, or civil society. What would be your preference? Kindly, once you have ticked the boxes, submit. And then we will slowly move to the poll results. and see where your preference is going. Who is, in general, the initiator of innovation agriculture in Africa? Let's go for the results. It appears on your screen. So surprisingly or not surprisingly, the majority considers that the farmer or farmer organizations will be the ones who would trigger the innovation rather than the researchers themselves. It reminds me to a European Commission DG Research poll, which was organized 4 years ago. There was an auditorium of 600 researchers mainly under Horizon 2020, FP7. And there, the poll result was researchers came at the last. So the researchers considered themselves, European researchers mainly, as having least impact on the development, on society, based on research. So they would consider other actors being or having the major impact on innovation. And one of the additional groups was consumers can have an important impact on whether research would trigger innovation. Let's move to the second question. What are the most important roles for research to support innovation in Africa? And there you will have different options. The role of research would be to produce useful scientific knowledge for actors, to develop new technologies, 3, participate in innovation platforms, 4, support actors to help them innovate by providing research expertise. So here you can give 2 answers max. And in the background, you are hearing the clock of my church in the neighborhood, 10 o'clock. Right, let's move to the outcomes of the poll. So the majority goes for indeed the last option, which is to help the actors and support them. So supporting farm organizations, support agri-entrepreneurs, and support them to innovate by providing research expertise and addressing their needs. So this clearly shows the preference for what the role of research is. Third question, third poll, is moving now mainly to the drivers of change to improve systems. Also there we ask you for 2 answers. The drivers to improve food systems is A, we must push the new technologies that are at the heart of innovation. This is the first option. Support the initiatives promoted by the actors in the fields. 3, the private sector must be developed to improve production systems and value chains. And 4th, policies. So the drivers for change, 4 options. Where is your preference going? Right, I think majority has submitted his preference. The results are coming. So here we see the majority goes for the last option. No, it's yes, 71%. So it's about policy. Policies need to be improved to create a truly incentives framework for actors. So it's recognized that without a policy framework, without a policy environment, it is rather difficult to have an impact of research. And then the last poll, constraints for scaling. It's a question which comes over and over again, scaling innovation, going from a pilot project to higher scale, as the proverb is going, pilots never fail, pilots rarely scale. A, because of a lack of match between innovation and the needs of stakeholders. B, because of difficult access to information regarding innovations. 3, the weak capacities of actors to innovate. 4, the lack of adequate services to develop innovation. So here also you are given the possibility to give 2 answers. And with this, we will close the polls. That is the 4th question. Let's now have a look at the results. So here, the majority goes for the last one, which is the lack of adequate services. So again, the whole environment of service providers, or the lack of it, is hampering innovation. This was just a poll for keeping us all awake. We are presently 64 participants online. Let's now move to the panel discussion, and I'm very happy to hand over to Helena. Helena Postumus, who is out of Amsterdam. She's working for the Koninklijk Instituut voor de Tropen, which means, from Dutch to English, the Royal Institute for the Tropics. Helena, up to you.
Thank you, Francois. And I do need to correct you here, because it's true that on Monday, at the beginning of this week, I was still working for the Royal Tropical Institute, but now I'm working for Wageningen University and Research. So during the week, I made a switch from one to the other. So good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to see you all here, and I'm very honored to present a diverse panel to you, who will each share their own experiences on innovation in agri-food systems. And each of them will give a short presentation to convey their insights on how innovation in agri-food systems can be supported. We will have a question and answer session after the 4 presentations. So during the presentations, during the discussion, please put your questions in the question and answer box, so that we can come back to that after the presentations. For the panelists, I do need to warn you that I'm not sure if you can see it, but I have, no, you can't. I have a timer on my phone to keep time. So you have each 5 minutes to present your key messages, and then I will have to cut in and ask you to wrap up. So first up, we will start with Mr. Selvaraju Ramasamy. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. My apologies. And I will introduce each panelist as it's their turn to present. So Selvaraju is head of unit research and extension at the FAO, and leading FAO's efforts in agricultural research and extension, agricultural innovation systems, amongst others. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. So the mic and the screen are yours.
Thank you, Elena. hope you could see my video as well as my presentation. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share our experiences in strengthening the capacity to innovate at the national level. As you're aware, innovation is key for agriculture transformation to meet the sustainable development goals. Agriculture research in that context is central to unleash the potential of agricultural innovation. Considering the importance of research and other actors in unleashing this potential, we used an approach called agricultural innovation systems. This consists of a network of actors that includes individuals, organizations, enterprises, and supporting institutions, together with policies and strategies that enable functioning of these institutions and multiple actors. And they bring existing and new products and services, processes and forms of organization into social and economical use to achieve the specific objective that can be to addressing a particular problem. This particular approach promotes a dynamic interaction among the multiple actors facilitated by multi-stakeholder processes that can unleash the potential of innovation. And of course, this was very frequently highlighted in the previous presentations. We promote this approach and strengthen the capacities at the national level using several tools and methods through a global multi-stakeholder mechanism, a facilitation mechanism called Tropical Agriculture Platform. As part of the DESIRA Tropical Agriculture Platform Agricultural Innovation Systems project, the approach is implemented in 9 countries. I would like to highlight what we do in 2 countries, just to give a flavor of what role research can play to promote agricultural innovation among various actors. In the Malawi case, our focus is to strengthen the enabling environment, especially at the policy level. This includes support. The research institutions can support for joint learning from successful innovation cases that is ongoing at the country level, especially focusing on local level interventions. In this particular case, we are building on our experiences from farmer field school approach that is also in a way multi-stakeholder platform at the local level that promotes mutual learning as well as addressing the specific issues. The research institutions can also join in the joint prioritization of agricultural innovation systems that includes research, extension, and education farmer linkages, strengthening these linkages, and also with marketing and business support and technical and policy support. The research institutions can also play a critical role in identification of key organizations. Essentially, that is also an entry point, and they can promote and conduct self-assessment of their capacity needs that can be addressed through the policy processes as well as other standalone capacity development initiatives. So the overall, this approach can contribute to facilitate and also provide evidence-based informed policy making that can promote upgrading of researcher skills, equipping multi-stakeholder platforms to facilitate farmer-led innovations. The overall objective of this intervention is to unlock the full capacity and full potential of agricultural innovation to address the emerging and also existing challenges. And this is addressed by strengthening the functional skills, the soft skills of the research institutions, and also multiple actors of agricultural innovation systems. In this particular Malawi case, we are working very closely with National Agriculture Research Systems, Extension Services, international organizations, education institutions, and also farmers organizations. Coming to the second example in Burkina Faso, and this is at different level because Burkina Faso already has a national innovation strategy that is, hosted with the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation since 2011. And we try to closely align with the objectives and priorities of this national strategy. And that led to policy dialogue and that promoted key improvements in the system that includes new financing mechanisms and service supports for agri-food processing sector, development of semi-industrial agricultural machinery manufacturers in agri-food processing. That's more of entrepreneurship, the local entrepreneurship. And this also increased the access to microcredit, improved linkages between education and innovation. Innovation in this context is multiple actors. And this also promoted uptake of new professions such as innovation facilitators, business coach, and incubator managers, etc. Our support in that context that focused on organizational coaching, facilitation of inter-organizational collaboration, and also new support services through the new multi-stakeholder centers that encompass the activities of providing multiple support to the innovation actors.
Can you please wrap up, Salvador?
This is the last slide, of course, the third one. Key messages, the role of research institutions. The research institutions need to support the ongoing innovation processes. Of course, that clearly came up during the poll. Processes led by multiple actors. That includes farmers' organizations, public and private services, etc. Investment in research institutions are still very much needed. This is an issue that was not highlighted in the poll. And of course, this is very surprising. This is a key aspect that we need to look into. The investment in, especially the public sector research is also being declined over the years. TAP Agricultural Innovation System project focuses on some demand-led training and joint learning between researchers and other AAS actors. The key message from the two examples, the one is to support the evidence-based policymaking and informed decisions that includes data generation, monitoring progresses, and mutual learning, and also advocate for new investments. And the second level is at the institutional level, support the design of incubators and service centers for increasing the efficiency of support services to meet the demand of multiple actors, not only the farmers, of course, in this case, it's a multiple actors. Thank you very much, Elena.
Thank you for that. we still have about two minutes. I just want to ask you one question. I'm glad to see that you also look at the side of researchers, what capacities we need to develop or what capacity strengthening is needed, because often when we talk about capacity to innovate, the immediate thought is what capacities may farmers need, or farmer organizations or private sector in the terms of small, medium enterprises. From your experience, if you think about a multi-actor approach, what are the main capacities and skills that local researchers require to be able to engage effectively in a multi-actor approach?
Yeah, thank you, Elena. I think, as I already mentioned, there is substantial technical skills these institutions have. The most missing factor that led to all these issues is the lack of soft skills, that is functional skills. Navigate the complexity of different organizations and to what extent they can collaborate and jointly learn from each other and co-create knowledge to address the specific issues. I think that was highlighted in the previous discussions as well. Our focus is more towards strengthening the soft skills, that is the functional capacities that is lacking among the institutions. And of course, towards that, establishing or promoting multi-stakeholder mechanisms at the national level and also at the local level is critical. So strengthening the functional capacity should also be complemented by promoting establishment of formal and informal multi-stakeholder mechanisms, which is critical to have a joint learning and also co-creation of knowledge.
Thank you. We will come back to you later on in the Q&A session, but as now time is up for the first introduction from your side, I want to move on to the next panelist. And this will be Mr. Again, I will try to pronounce your name correctly, but forgive me if I'm wrong, Mr. Olatunbosung Tijani. And Mr. Tijani is a Nigerian British entrepreneur and co-founder and CEO of Co-Creation Hub. This is a Pan-African innovation enabler that works at the forefront of accelerating the application of innovation and social capital for a better society. And I'm really curious to hear from you, Mr. Tijani, how you do that or what you do in this respect. And also probably good to know that Mr. Tijani was named as one of the 100 most influential people on the continent by a New Africa magazine, quite an achievement. So Mr. Tijani, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Elena. And it's a pleasure to be here. I'm guessing everyone can see my slide.
Yes, we can see it, but can you put it in presentation mode?
Okay.
See if that works.
Enter full screen, maybe.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So it's a pleasure to be here, and I have to say I'm a bit of an outsider in a way because my interest is more in digital innovation. But also I've been in the position of joining the recently put together advisory group by the European Commission, which is focused on mainstreaming research and innovation between in the relationship between Africa and Europe. And in the course of this work, because I support innovation, and I've seen on the continent that there's a strong demand and interest in seeing how we can drive for productivity, but also strong outcomes in the critical sectors that Africa is looking at. And agriculture is one of those sectors. And as we can see, there's an emerging interest, but also a growing interest in the application of digital innovation in particular in agriculture. And if you look at what GSMA put together in last year, GSMA actually put together a report, which is a map of all the innovation focused on information and communication technology innovation and digital solutions within the agriculture space. And GSMA found about 437 different innovations. And you may be asking yourself, as we talk about innovation, as we talk about research within the agriculture space, why is digital innovation important? There's so many reasons to why digital innovation is important. For those who are following the trends here, the opportunity for resources that goes into digital innovation is way much more than what you find for traditional research, because you now find multiple actors who are engaging in funding digital innovation. A lot of these guys are investors. You have development agencies also funding this. You have smart individuals who are entrepreneurs who are starting their own startups, looking for really interesting solutions using most of the emerging technologies that we know today to make society better. Some of them to give opportunity to businesses to be able to do their business better. And it's the same thing you will find within the agriculture space. In some of the work that we've been doing, we've been looking at some of these so-called digital innovation in the agri space. And some of the top areas that we came across, for those who followed the trend, of course, you will know about the crowd farming phenomenon on the African continent, where access to capital is now being driven through crowdfunding platforms for farmers. So farmers who now struggle, who used to struggle to find funding, for their farm, can now through this crowd farming platform raise money from the crowd You know, and this is an exciting development that is cutting across the continent. We've seen the largest ones being Farm Crowdy, which is from Nigeria. Thrive Agric is another example, but also Complete Farmer is also one of those that are quite popular on the continent. And simply, these guys use digital platforms to mobilize resources from the crowd, you know, give it to farmers, get returns from the farmers, and give it back to the investors. The jury is still out on how effective this model is. But this is an interesting model through which digital innovation is disrupting access to funding. Another one which we've seen, which is growing significantly, is actually precision agriculture, you know, which is the use of things like remote sensing, you know, satellite technologies to help farmers improve the efficiency of how they manage their farm. And you see companies like Aero Robotics, for instance, who recently raised about $17 million US from investors to come up with really exciting solutions for farmers across the African continent and behind. Some of these companies are also using technologies like drones to help farmers improve how they manage their farm and, in essence, improve the outcome. Another one that is beginning to also, still early stage on the continent, is agroecology. And one company in particular, and I have to give the caveat on this one. I don't know how successful this company is yet, but it's an interesting company that is doing fog farming. You know, it started out from Cape Town, where there was water crisis, and this company decided to research and come up with fog farming solution where they capture the fog and try to help farmers use the water from fog to actually farm, which I find extremely, extremely interesting. The last one, which has been on the continent for a while, but is also now improving, is what we call the advisory and information services using digital solutions. As you start to see more farmers gain access to mobile telephoning, whether it's through their SMS or through internet, we're seeing more solutions that providing real-time data and information to farmers to help them improve. And what we did when we studied this trend was to use the theoretical framework, which is the sectoral system of innovation, to try to understand what is driving all these digital innovations that we're seeing within the agriculture space. And this framework gives us the chance to do this analysis under three broad categories. The last speaker spoke to quite a number of these categories. But what we did was we looked at the actors and networks that are driving digital innovation that we're seeing on the continent. On the other hand, we looked at the knowledge and the technological domain. What do we now know, or what technologies are there on the African continent that is driving this emergence and surge in digital innovation within the agriculture space? And lastly, we looked at institutions. And by institutions, we mean policies, regulations, and norms that are driving innovation. And you will find that it's actually quite exciting. The reason why crowd farming became a thing, for instance, in most African countries was actually the fact that there was no regulations in place for crowdfunding. So this is how you see that lack of regulations at times can also lead to innovation, especially in the digital space. Because there was no policy for crowdfunding, people were able to create this platform, raise money from the crowd, direct it to the farmers, and in the process, they were able to give access to funding to some farmers. You know, what you are now seeing is some countries on the African continent are beginning to come up with crowdfunding policy, which is good, but we have to be careful that these policies don't then end up killing innovation. When you look at the actors and networks, and this is quite important for stakeholders within the agriculture space, that when we talk about innovation, let's not limit it to the traditional actors, because you're seeing the emergence of non-traditional actors and network that are participating in innovation within the space. So you're seeing the fact that smallholder farmers are contributing significantly. Aggregators are becoming also powerful in understanding how to innovate and how to get innovation to the farmers. Extension workers are still there. Off-takers are playing a major role as well, because as they're desperate to get more yields and get more results and produce from the farmers, they also want to ensure that the farmers can produce efficiently to meet their needs. You know, fintech startups are playing a major role. Financial service providers are becoming active. DFIs are also doing a lot in this space now. You know, you see the likes of GIZ from Germany that is investing significantly in this area, in agriculture across the continent. FI International, which is an NGO, is also playing it. So you'll find a lot of organizations organizations in this place. Tech investors, technology investors are becoming a major player in agriculture, so we cannot ignore them. So you have a list of all these organizations, GSMA, that are now becoming active in agriculture because they see the potentials for agriculture in Africa, and they understand that digital innovation can actually help to drive productivity and improve the outcomes of the sector. Another thing that is—
soon, sorry, can you wrap up? I need to cut you short.
This is the last slide. And I'm sure I've not used 5 minutes, but anyways, another thing that is quite important that we need to look at is also the role of space technology. Space technology is also becoming quite efficient in the space. And the fact that the policies around space technology on the African continent is also beginning to be more liberal. So you're seeing the application of exciting new solutions. You're seeing organizations like Airbus, for instance, also playing a major role in precision agriculture on the continent. And lastly is the knowledge and technological domain. The list is there. I'm sure my presentation will be shared. I hope I didn't spend more than the time allocated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You're very enthusiastic, but it was also very interesting presentation that you shared with us. I do have, please stay here because I want to ask you a question. Because I'm sure that some of us, at least I was listening to your story with a bit of jealousy when you said there are plenty of resources, there's a lack of policy, which gives you a lot of freedom in this space to innovate. And I know that in more traditional projects, whether it's research or development, there's often a lot of bureaucracy and there's a limited resources available. So I wanted to ask you, could you say a bit more what attracts these investors to this space of innovation? And whereas they're not attracted to invest in more traditional research, for example, or development projects that also try to push innovation in agriculture?
Well, I think over the last couple of years, it's obvious that digital technologies are beginning to shape society really strongly. We're seeing the power of internet like we've never been seen before. And what this means is that there's a cohort of investors who understand how destructive these digital technologies can be. The fact that these digital technologies can take out gatekeepers, right? And these gatekeepers oftentimes are those who actually waste a lot of resources that have traditionally been there. You give the money to the gatekeepers, a ton of it is spent on meetings, on stakeholders who really don't do what needs to be done to get access to the farmers. And it's been documented that Africa has significant opportunity to create immense wealth, to contribute to how we solve the food crisis in the world. But traditionally, innovation within the agriculture space has not been very, very attractive. We've not seen much growth in it. And it's the same thing you find in financial technologies. There's foreign funding that is now coming into the space. So because they see the potentials, Africa has population to feed. If you invest in agriculture, if agriculture is effective, you're guaranteed to make good returns. And these investors are looking for spaces for good returns. So agriculture is one of those areas that for those of us in digital technology and innovation, it's going to become really more exciting. You're going to see more innovation money from the private sector coming into it over the next 5 to 10 years, because people see the chance to create value in the sector.
So what is your one piece of advice to researchers who are now thinking, actually, I want to explore this space of innovation. I want to engage with the non-traditional actors that you were talking about. What is the one piece of advice you would give to researchers to move into this space?
I think it's application. You agree with me that research in agriculture, there's been a lot of groundbreaking activities, but when you look at the outcomes and you look at how many of them get to application, applied research, you agree with me that there's too many knowledge on the shelf. There's too many knowledge on the shelf, even across Europe, that can help Africa agricultural sector to be more effective. But the journey to proper technology transfer and actually getting it to the farmer is too long. And most of the time, this never happens. We've not been able to bridge that gap. So anyone who is looking at these stakeholders needs to understand that their interest is in seeing farmers use the solution. They're not trying to fund innovation for the fun of it. They're funding innovation that can actually get to the hands of the farmers, help to improve the outcomes from the agricultural sector, and create wealth for both the farmers, the investors, and the economy as well.
Thank you. We move on to the next panelist, but I just want to remind everyone, if you have a question to one of the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box. Also add your own name, because we cannot see all the names of the people who are in the room, unfortunately, due to a technical issue. So when you pose your question, please add your name and your affiliation. I want to move to our next speaker, and this is Elisabetta Gothar. And she is an agricultural economist working at Cette, the Center for, am I saying this good? Well, you can explain yourself. You're currently leading the program on performance, innovation, and strategic analysis for impact at the Alliance of Biodiversity International. So Elisabetta, the floor is yours to share your insights and experience, and please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm working for one of the CGIAR center. Now we are merging into one CGIAR, the Alliance of Biodiversity International and Cette, based in Rome. I'm also co-leading the cluster in the CGIAR research program on roots, tubers, and banana on foresight and impact assessment. So I'm going to share with you today some insight that I've gained over the years in dealing with impact assessment, prioritization, foresight analysis of CGIAR innovations. I'm gonna share my screen. Apologies for not being ready. Sorry, I share screen. Okay. Can you see my screen now? I guess so.
No, not yet.
Share. Too many platforms, too many innovations in technologies these days.
No, we see your screen.
I trust you can see my screen.
Can you put it in presentation mode?
Yes, here we go. So I'm going basically to repeat all the 1 hour and a half we have spent so far together has been extremely informative because you know, everything we have said, Guy have said, and the others, we have experienced it in reality, also in the CGIAR. We need to develop demand-driven impact pathways that are leading research innovations to the big SDG. And we have seen in RTB, in the CGIAR program on roots, tubers, and bananas, also on the work that we do at the Alliance of Biodiversity and Cette, that you know, we have very short-term impact pathways that are leading technologies to productivity gains and to reduction of poverty. And those pathways are easy to measure, easy to monitor. There are not many co-funding factors that has to be taken into consideration during the analysis, but the complexity arises when we want to follow those impact pathways that are not so short-term and direct, but are following route that are intricated. And this is especially the case if we want to analyze the impact of innovations and technologies on natural resource management or on the environment or on outcomes that do not have monetary values. So the classical return on investment analysis cannot always be applicable. So the development of those long-term and intricate impact pathways has implications not only in developing clear and sound monitoring and evaluation framework, a strategic monitoring framework that are letting us understand not only the pathway of one innovations, but also how the interactions of different innovations are contributing to the outcome and to the impact. And we need to understand what are not only the big lag indicators that we want to measure, but also what are the small leading indicators to the big change. And we also need to develop a credible theory of changes in support of the impact pathways that are letting us understand the how this change is happening, how these innovations are uptaken and scaled up. What is the science of scaling? There is a new research portfolio that is actually starting once the technology and the innovation is released. Whatever innovation we are talking here about, the development of an improved varieties or best practices around pest and disease management. So what is the journey that starts? What are the actors that are involved along the journey, and what is the relationship of these actors? We need to understand whether there are bottlenecks that might hindering the advancement of the technology along the impact pathways, and mostly we need to understand what are the transmission channels that are enabling the advancement along the impact pathway. So those are all elements that, in my opinion, are needed if we really want to link research innovations to big development outcomes, and that we need to that we need to monitor. So how this can be done? We need to develop an evidence-based system. So we need to be systematic in collecting whatever informations and evidence we have of the technologies, and we need to, and through this evidence, we need to channel these technologies and innovation along the intricate impact pathways that are going beyond the project life cycle, because here we are talking about funding of innovations and technologies that most likely will have an impact once the grants, the project is over, once we have stepped out from the field and there are other actors coming in. So somehow we need to track back all this journey, and therefore the importance of having a strategic results framework that is enabling us to understand this. And then we also have to understand what are the stage-gating technologies and innovations that are mature enough for being scaled out and really analyze their contribution to the high-level impact. Not all innovations have the same degree of maturity, and not all innovations are contributing at the same level to the big impact outcome. And therefore, we need to understand also what are the nested theory of changes across these innovations and how they interact among each other, and again, and what are the actors that then can scale them up so that we can really measure impact. So these are my key messages that I wanted to reiterate to you all, because I think are key messages that we need to keep in mind. So the importance of having a sound strategic results framework with a clear monitoring system, monitoring indicators, measure indicators, but also using prioritizations and scenario settings for foresight analysis that can also help us guiding those innovations along impact pathways. So it's really, for me, it's the interactions of three major functions around priority setting and foresight analysis of innovations, monitoring on innovation and assessing the impact of innovations. So learning is happening across these three functions and are enabling us, the interactions of these three functions are enabling us to measure impact in the long terms. Over to you, Elena.
Thank you, Elisabetta. Also a question for you. In the impact pathway of bringing research into use, supporting innovation, supporting impact, where in the research process or along the impact pathway do you see a role for non-academic actors if we think about the multi-actor approach? Can you say something about that? How can other actors feed into your impact pathway, or where do they appear?
Since the beginning, I think the paradigm of scientists bringing the innovation on their own, it's over. So the importance of co-designing those innovations based on the demand, on the need that are out there, I think it's key. I see also, you know, this is related to what my colleague at FAO was saying before. Another must to have now along these impact pathways is the need of multidisciplinary interactions across us. So it's not anymore the economist assessing the impact of a technology, but is or the genetist developing the improved varieties to be distributed, but is really the interaction with, you know, with farmers associations, with anthropologists, with you know, with economists, with sociologists, and understanding what's the best way of presenting the new technologies. So for me, the partners are now key actors since the beginning of the development of the research innovation. Otherwise, we will get always stop at the, you know, once the grant is over, 10 journal articles published, and we all forget. We move somewhere else, new projects, new activities, and we forget the innovations that actually are there, but needs to be pushed and promoted.
Thank you. We'll move on to our last panelist, and I'm very happy she can also join us in this discussion, because our last speaker will be Madame Annick Sesibera, and she is Chief Executive of the Confederation of Farmers Association for Development in Burundi. The acronym is CAPAD, which is a national federation, gathering more than 100 cooperatives and 150,000 members. So if we talk about a farmer representative, Madame Sesibera certainly is a farmer representative. So, Madame Sesibera, la parole est à vous.
Merci, Madame Elena. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Et merci pour l'opportunité. Et comme vous venez de le mentionner, donc moi, je travaille pour la CAPAD, qui est une organisation paysanne œuvrant au Burundi. Et au cours donc, des dernières années, nous avons, avec les organisations d'appui, donc les ONG, avec les agriculteurs, pour nous appuyer dans notre réflexion de s'orienter vers l'agroécologie. Donc, depuis 2017, et les agriculteurs membres de s'orienter vers l'agroécologie.
Pardon, la ligne est mal, on ne vous écoute pas.
Dans l'optique et dans l'objectif, et pour non pas aller de faire. Vous ne m'entendez pas? Allô?
Oui, maintenant oui,
Allô?
mais à fois ça coupe.
Ah, je vais essayer. Ah oui, ça me montre que mon réseau était instable. Mais la présentation, donc vous voyez le partage écran?
Oui, oui, on voit la présentation.
Ok, d'accord. Donc, je disais que donc la méthodologie qu'on a utilisée pour cette orientation vers l'agroécologie qui vise à l'autonomisation des agriculteurs membres d'OCAPAD, surtout dans tout ce qui concerne l'approvisionnement, mais aussi les pratiques agroécologiques. On a utilisé la méthode co-construction et co-création des connaissances. Et cette méthode a été facilitée par le GERDAL, parce que tout d'abord, on a mis en place un cadre de collaboration multi-acteurs, et parce qu'à nous seuls, agriculteurs et la CAPAD, on ne pouvait pas y arriver, donc on a été appuyé par les chercheurs, notamment l'Université du Burundi, l'Institut de recherche aussi du Burundi, ainsi que le GERDAL, et les ONG, notamment une ONG belge, le collectif Stratégie alimentaire, ainsi que une ONG française, le CCFD. Et donc, autour de cette thématique d'autonomisation des agriculteurs, il a fallu d'abord des préalables. Les préalables ont été le renforcement de capacité des équipes de notre organisation, la CAPAD, parce que nous-mêmes, depuis plusieurs années, on avait été donc orienté vers un autre type d'agriculture, l'agriculture conventionnelle, mais aussi tout ce qu'on avait appris à l'université était orienté beaucoup plus vers l'agriculture conventionnelle, et les pratiques agroécologiques étaient considérées comme un peu archaïques. Au sein de cette cadre de collaboration multi-acteurs, l'appui de la recherche a été donc l'amélioration des connaissances paysannes pour proposer des innovations qui répondaient aux préoccupations des agriculteurs. Ici, je peux donner des exemples sur celle pour permettre à l'agriculteur et aux paysans de pouvoir lui-même multiplier et sélectionner ses semences et les conserver et de s'approvisionner sur le marché une fois sur 4 saisons au lieu de le faire à chaque saison comme le modèle conventionnel le voulait. Donc, ils nous ont apporté des améliorations, mais aussi cette recherche autour de la multiplication de semences paysannes a permis aux chercheurs aussi de confectionner la méthodologie, mais aussi de faire une mise à l'échelle facile. L'appui donc des organisations internationales et des ONG a été la facilitation donc du processus autour de la recherche et l'action, mais aussi l'échange d'expériences à travers des appuis techniques et financiers, mais aussi a permis la vulgarisation de ces innovations en milieu paysan et une mise à l'échelle, comme je venais de le souligner. Et ici, je vais vous donner un exemple concret d'une telle collaboration donc multi-acteurs autour d'un sujet qui préoccupait les agriculteurs. Et on a essayé de tirer donc les chercheurs de l'ISABU, donc l'Institut de recherche du Burundi, vers cette préoccupation autour donc de l'utilisation du titonia qui en milieu paysan et chez CAPAD, on avait donc des connaissances sur la façon, mais aussi par des observations. On a de l'utilisation par le paillage. Après, il y a eu d'autres expérimentations chez les agriculteurs expérimentateurs qui ont commencé à utiliser le titonia comme un ingrédient de compost et ils avaient observé que ça améliorait donc les éléments nutritifs au niveau du compostage. Et certains ont commencé à l'utiliser comme un liquide, comme biopesticide sur les plantes et d'autres le mettaient en poquet. Et au niveau de l'organisation paysanne, donc au niveau de la CAPAD, on a essayé de poser donc la question aux chercheurs s'ils avaient de leur côté fait la recherche sur les meilleures utilisations du titonia et si oui, quel partage on pourrait faire ou quel échange on pourrait avoir. Donc, on s'est rendu compte qu'effectivement, au niveau de l'ISABU, ils avaient fait la recherche sur titonia, ils avaient une fiche technique, ils avaient comparé les modalités d'utilisation en comparaison avec les engrais chimiques, mais ça ne répondait pas exactement à la préoccupation qu'avaient les agriculteurs de l'utilisation du titonia en comparaison par contre avec la fumure organique et le rôle que pourrait jouer le titonia soit pour améliorer la fumure organique en soi, mais aussi pour améliorer la fertilité des sols. Donc, on s'est réunis avec les agriculteurs, avec les abus, bien sûr, avec la facilitation de GERDAL, d'abord pour traduire cette problématique des agriculteurs en question en thématique de recherche. Et il s'en est dégagé 3 thématiques sur lesquelles on s'est convenu de travailler de commun accord dans le cadre d'un processus de recherche participative pour regarder l'efficacité du titonia sur la fertilité des sols. Aussi essayer de faire la recherche autour des meilleures utilisations possibles pour bien conseiller l'agriculteur, mais aussi regarder et finalement quelle quantité nécessaire pour améliorer la fertilité des sols avec le titonia. Et les modalités, donc, on s'est convenu aussi des modalités de recherche qui étaient basées sur le recueil des pratiques qui existent chez les agriculteurs et de faire des évaluations sur les critères qu'on s'était convenus ensemble. Et on a conduit des expérimentations en milieu paysan chez les agriculteurs et expérimentateurs, mais aussi des expérimentations au niveau de la station. Et je pense qu'il y a quelque chose qui a sauté ici. Donc, en conclusion, cette collaboration plutôt agriculteurs et chercheurs, avec aussi l'implication des autres acteurs sur les aspects, que ce soit les aspects de renforcement de capacité, les aspects de coaching sur la méthodologie, et nous a permis jusqu'à maintenant de résoudre des problèmes et de répondre aux préoccupations des agriculteurs en essayant de réfléchir aux alternatives, mais aussi à l'amélioration des connaissances, et non pas en allant peut-être sur des connaissances toutes faites, mais en essayant d'améliorer ce qui existe en milieu paysan. Et il y a quelque chose qui a sauté sur les défis par rapport à cette collaboration multi-acteurs, à cette collaboration autour donc de la recherche éco-constructive, où les grands défis pour l'agriculteur, en tout cas dans le contexte burundais d'activité de terre, la préoccupation majeure pour l'agriculteur, c'est nourrir sa famille et tout en intensifiant son exploitation. Donc, il a besoin des innovations de recherche qui sont adéquates. Et
s'il vous plaît, si vous pouvez terminer votre présentation.
Et oui, je vais vite pour terminer. Et je dirais que la plus-value de cette collaboration multi-acteurs est l'amélioration donc des connaissances par les chercheurs, et cela par donc la validation scientifique, mais aussi par la clarification des méthodologies. Et aussi, cette clarification de méthodologie permet de rendre les résultats plus réplicables et diffusables. Je dirais que la difficulté, c'est que souvent, il y a moins de préoccupations réelles des agriculteurs, mais aussi que, comme les autres l'ont souligné, souvent, les projets de recherche sont financés par des projets qui sont limités dans le temps et malheureusement qui ne donnent pas le temps d'investir et de tester les innovations aux besoins du monde rural qui demande souvent compréhension, patience et temps, d'où l'importance des politiques nationales pour soutenir le développement autour de l'innovation participative. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for this presentation. Merci bien. On n'a plus de temps de poser une question, je crois. We only have 5 minutes left in this session, and I'm looking at the Q&A box to see if there are any questions for the panelists. But Francois, I also want to invite you in here if you see any questions that we can still pose to the panelists before we close.
Non, je propose que pour les questions, on passe directement à la conclusion maintenant. Et éventuellement, on peut contacter ceux qui posent une question individuellement, offline.
Then I give the screen and a mic back to you, Francois, if you want to move to the closure.
Right, so I now suggest that Guy is giving a wrap-up, and then we have then at the end Christophe Larose. The overall Leap for FNSSA week has now at 11 a.m. an important panel with senior speakers, so let's not extend too much this present webinar. Guy, over to you.
OK, thank you. Merci. Juste pour rappeler quelques points à partir des différentes présentations. Moi, je retiens trois points autour de l'approche multi-acteurs. Eh bien, il est évident que toutes les présentations ont évoqué ces questions d'une manière ou d'une autre, mais de manière très nette. Et c'est une reconnaissance de l'importance de ces approches multi-acteurs. Néanmoins, les présentations ont montré que cette approche multi-acteurs doit être envisagée à différents niveaux. Agré a parlé du niveau local et d'un niveau plus stratégique, qui peut être un niveau national ou un autre niveau, mais ces approches multi-acteurs doivent être vues dans différentes dimensions. Ces approches multi-acteurs aussi s'expriment différemment suivant les secteurs. On a bien vu qu'avec la présentation d'Annick, à travers l'expérimentation paysanne, on a des approches multi-acteurs qu'on va dire non pas classiques, parce que là, les paysans sont conduisent et gèrent le processus d'innovation, mais on retrouve des acteurs classiques, tandis que Tidjani nous a fait part d'un nouveau secteur qui émerge avec le digital et de nouveaux acteurs et des nouvelles préoccupations. Le deuxième point, c'est l'appui à l'innovation. L'appui à l'innovation a été la question centrale finalement, puisque les intervenants ont parlé de la recherche, mais surtout de comment accompagner l'innovation utile pour les paysans. Et on voit le besoin de nouveaux services, de nouvelles fonctions. Selva Rajou a insisté sur le rôle de facilitateur, Agré aussi. On voit des nouveaux services comme les incubateurs pour favoriser des entrepreneurs, mais on voit aussi des nouveaux services du digital très nettement qui se développent, et Tidjani nous a bien montré que ça se développe très vite, même s'il y a certainement des difficultés, comme l'a noté quelqu'un dans le chat. Et le troisième point, c'est sur le rôle de la recherche. J'ai été surpris que, notamment dans le pool, que l'ensemble des participants reconnaissent une diversité de rôles et que même le rôle le plus important n'a pas été la production de connaissances. Donc, c'est assez surprenant, mais en tout cas, cette reconnaissance que la recherche doit jouer un certain rôle. Elisabetta a insisté sur le fait que pour jouer ce rôle-là, la recherche doit être stratégique et doit développer avec les autres acteurs des chemins d'impact et des outils de suivi-évaluation pour l'apprentissage, pour pouvoir piloter, enfin en tout cas comprendre où on se situe dans le processus d'innovation et noter les points de progrès et d'amélioration obtenus par l'ensemble des acteurs, dont la recherche. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Christophe.
Oui, merci. Je vais aussi être très rapide. Simplement, pour évidemment remercier les participants au panel. Je pense qu'on a eu une diversité d'interventions et de perspectives qui quand même montrent l'intérêt sur le sujet et à la fois la complexité du sujet, mais aussi des approches qui ont quelque chose de relativement explicite et concret à montrer sur le terrain. Ce genre de séminaire est une illustration de ce qu'on compte faire et faciliter à travers cette facilité Desiralift que l'on a lancé hier. Et donc, je pense qu'il y aura encore des séries d'événements de cette nature qui nous aideront à avancer dans la réflexion et produire de l'évidence sur un certain nombre de ces sujets, notamment sur la pertinence et l'impact de ces approches multi-acteurs, où manifestement il y a encore un travail important à faire pour en démontrer l'importance. Ce que moi je voudrais simplement dire pour conclure, c'est que effectivement l'innovation doit quand même chercher à répondre à des problèmes, et puis aussi l'innovation doit se poser la question de l'innovation pourquoi. Et on peut, en fonction des acteurs, avoir différentes perspectives. La création de valeur, c'est certainement un élément important. Évidemment aussi, vu les enjeux auxquels fait face notre monde, la dimension de création de valeur doit être positionnée dans la perspective de la gestion durable des ressources naturelles, de la biodiversité et de la réponse et de l'adaptation au changement climatique. Donc, simplement pour remercier, ne pas empiéter sur les autres sessions de cette semaine organisées par l'IPRO-FNSSA. Et voilà, remercier les uns les autres pour l'intérêt et la participation au cours de cette discussion. Merci.
Excellent. So then I suggest that our dear interpreters and Céline and Barbara, but also Aira, just switch their camera on so that we can see them, wave them, thank them for a great facilitation of this session. Merci beaucoup Céline, merci beaucoup Barbara, and thank you very much Aira out of Switzerland, merci. While Céline and Barbara out of France. They were, I think, incredibly helpful for having a smooth session for 2 hours. You have deserved a wonderful weekend and hopefully with some sun. So bye-bye for now, and hope to see you next time in another session. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.